I'm Dr. Jenny Brown, and I have a few thoughts to share with grandparents, speaking as a grandparent myself from the wonderful privilege that it is to be able to be a resource for our children and our children's children. The ideas that I have may also be useful for those of you who are extended family in support roles with children, or possibly alternate carers providing respite or occasional extra support for children or part of the foster care system. It's very interesting to consider how to best be a resource when you're not the biological parents. And the first thing that I would say is beware of skipping over the biological parents to focus on the child and make the child your priority. It's just so easy to do that. And with that comes the potential for tensions and misunderstandings with the parent of that child. So first and foremost, make the priority relationship the actual parents of the child. And for grandparents, that will be your own adult children, and being very respectful of their parenting partners who are their priority relationship now. No longer is the priority relationship our relationship with our children, who are now grown and launched as adults and doing their own family life. So ensure that the relationship with the adult is worked on with regular contact, knowing what's going on in our children's worlds, being curious, being interested, and a few tips in dealing with our adult children as parents when it comes to our involvement with their children. First of all, the old adage, don't assume, ask. No mind reading about what my daughter or my son-in-law or daughter-in-law would want me to do to help their children. It is not helpful in any relationship to mind read. So important to ask, to say, I'll be able to help out as you've requested on this occasion. What are the things that you would particularly like me to focus on with Sally or Sam or whatever the child's name is? To ask and never assume. And if we're wanting to be a resource and wanting to be helpful, we can just ask, how could I be helpful? What ideas do you have? And if our child or our adult child doesn't have any particular responses to that, it can be useful to offer some suggestions. Here are some things that I'd be willing to do. Would that be useful to you? For example, I'd be willing to cook some meals at this time while your child's sick. Would that be helpful? I would be willing to do some shopping or some housework for you to assist. Would that be useful? So many problem relationship situations occur through a well-meaning grandparent assuming that what they are doing will be welcomed, and often it's experienced as disrespectful and intrusive, and especially with our in-laws. Be very careful of that triangle. It is such a sensitive one. If all of our communication is directly with our son and daughter, and we are planning things for our grandchildren without saying, please check this with your husband or wife before we go ahead with it. Please ensure that you've run it by them so that we're never bypassing that really important respect for the marriage, for the parenting partnership. The in-law is really vulnerable to feeling like an outsider in the relationship of a grandparent with their adult child. So be very careful of that relationship. Also, just take care not to be child-led in the interactions with our grandchildren or nephews and nieces. It's just so easy to go with the flow of doing what a child wants all the time and forgetting our principles. For example, to something I've noticed that I can do with my gorgeous toddler granddaughter, where she can become a little bit demanding, and I find myself just going along with it rather than remembering how important the principle is for me to hear the word please before I support a request from a child. So just being aware of self, which is the key idea in all of the Parent Hope resources, is making the project the parent, or in this case, the grandparent, rather than just letting the child's emotions and wishes run the show. That will help us avoid really unhelpful spoiling of children, which isn't helpful to their parents. And it also helps us to enjoy a respectful relationship developing back and forth between our grandchildren and ourselves. The one last tip I will throw in today is watch that we as grandparents are managing our own energy levels, that we're not just saying yes to things, dropping everything to support our adult children or support our grandchildren, that could potentially leave us exhausted, stretched a little bit too far, potentially burnt out, and that can contribute to feeling negative emotions towards our grandchildren or towards our children. We are responsible for setting realistic expectations with our children on what we're willing to do, what we're able to do, what we've got the capacity to do. And that is also great role modeling for our children, to be able to express our own boundaries when they want us to drop what we're doing and play with them, just to pause and think before saying yes. To just think, is what I'm currently doing important for me to finish? Can I say to my grandchild, I'd love to have some time with you doing that activity, but I need to finish this chapter of the book I'm reading first, and then I'll let you know when I've got the time. That is a way that a grandparent or a support worker for a child can be responsible for not overextending themselves. And if there are some tensions that have developed over time with your adult children and with your adult children's partners, just put the effort into staying connected with them, not pushing your way into their worlds, giving the relationship time to recover, being a good listener to understand the perspective of our adult children. There are lots of important things to do to create the space for a relationship to reset. And the most important thing is to work on being a principled, respectful self, parent and grandparent, rather than trying to push or pull or impose on our children what we want for them. So there are a few things to consider, and at the same time to consider what a wonderful opportunity it is to be a resource for the next generation in our families, and to enjoy what is a very short childhood. They grow up so quickly, don't they? And to be able to really think through our own life priorities and ensure that we don't look back and regret that we didn't make enough time to be a resource and to enjoy all of the great rewards of having a meaningful relationship with our adult children and their children.